We're in for a long one today, folks. Hello everyone and welcome. I had the brilliant idea of giving us a triple feature of gay-themed movies to review on this auspicious month of June. The three we'll be covering today are... Is it red, white, and royal blue? Or is it royal, red, white... hold on. Red, white, and royal blue, that's the one. So I had heard a lot of good things about this movie. It's been out for forever. As usual, I'm late. I don't care anymore. I watch these on my own time. It's only when I get in the mood for these movies that I really get in the mood for these movies. You know what I'm saying? Here I am going into the movie thinking it's gonna be something of a young royals-ish experience. Maybe a Princess Diaries for the queer folk. No, that's definitely not what this is. This movie is horny. This movie is too horny. Let's just do the synopsis. When the feud between the son of the American president and Britain's prince threatens to drive a wedge in US-Britain relations, the two are forced into a staged truce that sparks something deeper. That sums it up pretty well. So, the son of the American president, who is Alex, and the Prince of England, Henry. Right, so Alex and Henry. So the movie starts and Alex is complaining about Henry, Henry's complaining about Alex. Alex gets drunk, they have some shenanigans in front of the big wedding cake. They're the talk of the town, wow. They make such a big deal out of it, but it's like the most harmless thing that could ever happen. To resolve the drama of the cake fiasco, they kind of force the two into little publicity events that would kind of make it seem like they're friends and that Alex wasn't trying to actively sabotage the wedding in England. And it's during one of their little events that they actually get trapped in the closet together because of course they would do that. They have a heart-to-heart about how they first met and the first impressions. Henry was a bit of a dick. Alex really took that badly. Henry was going through a rough time, etc, etc. And then they go through this entire arc of just getting to become better friends via text, which usually this sort of thing might not show the chemistry that much, but the way they did it in this, just having the actors be there to act out and voice their text to each other, it actually worked pretty well, and it helped them show the on-screen chemistry without them in reality being in the same place. So Alex invites Henry to this I think it's a New Year's party. People are getting down. Henry goes outside because, you know, Alex is getting macked on by various ladies and probably dudes in the party. When fast forward to outside, Henry's contemplating because that's definitely something you do because parties are crowded and loud and you need time and fresh air and it's beautiful outside, at which point they start talking about some sentimental stuff. You know, it's very sweet. Henry's like, Alex, you're an idiot. I have a crush on you. He kisses Alex and then he runs away. I mean, I really hate when they do this. You're gonna let him do that to you and then you're gonna let him walk away? No, absolutely not. It could never be me. Anyway, Henry tries to avoid contact with Alex until inevitably they end up at the same function together because, you know, politics and royalty and all that garbage. And of course, Alex asks one of the Secret Service to get him in a room with Henry alone, which... No asking for permission, no like, hey, is this okay? None of that. These two, like one kiss in the red room and then they're fully ready to like throw down, and I'm like, this is a function, what are you doing? Very rom-com. Alex has this line where he's like, I'm going to do very bad things to you. And I'm like, it's really silly. It's really horny. And then they just have a nice little happy arc of visiting each other and having random sexual encounters. And it's like, yeah, do that. It's fine. But here I am waiting for like what the drama is going to be. Usually it would be, what a scandal. The president's kid and royalty or a queer relationship. Oh my god, who Who could have seen this coming? It's such a plague on our nations. Wow. But that inevitably is what does go on, but it stays really sweet for a long time, and I actually appreciate that. The other shoe does end up dropping when a rather shady journalist basically just spied on the two and got a scoop. I think he like hacked the email, or I don't know, I think Alex probably just left his computer out and he just read something happened, I don't know, but emails leak the king, I believe, whoever Stephen Fry is. He's like, no, deny, deny, deny. The people of England support the very queer princes, so that's good for them. Meanwhile, in a completely irrelevant subplot, Alex was helping his mom, the president, win the election to flip Texas. Don't think I didn't catch the innuendo on flipping Texas. And they succeeded in flipping Texas in a very quick resolution. I thought that angle of the movie would be more like played up, the political side, but I like that it's happy. I like that it focuses on the nicer times of the relationship rather than tragedy. But from a story perspective, I find that the lack of conflicts and drama does actually make things less sharp, less impactful. Like the conflict of Henry shutting down the relationship in the middle of it being like, I can't be out, I can't, tell everyone about this. Eventually they talk about it a little more and they get that support. So having that be what I would argue is the bigger focus of the movie, it wasn't so impactful in the grand scheme. Other movies and shows have done or are trying to do it better. I think Young Royals is kind of leading up to that big grand acceptance of the prince in that sort of like relationship. I have not seen Young Royals season 3, by the way. I'll get to that later. Red, White, and Royal Blue is a nice, comforting rom-com for what it is, but even as far as rom-coms go, it still lacked a bit of a bite in terms of a conflict that really hit home or like really gets you. Don't get me wrong, the heartfelt scenes of the movie were really well done. Like the first time they made love, as Henry calls it, he asked for it beforehand in very sweet terms. That's romantic, that's lovely, I love that. The scene of their first time was actually really touching, more so than you'd usually see in these kinds of movies. Consideration and a little bit of realism. I think that part was probably the highlight of the movie. And not even for like the sexiness of it, but just emphasizing that despite it being a sexy situation, the care is there. And I love that. I'm not gonna give these movies a review on any kind of like standard scale. I'm not gonna like tally points into certain metrics. My gut feeling for this movie is probably around a 7. Like 5 is too average, and it goes beyond a 6 in that I really liked the things that it was doing well at, but as for the whole package, it really did feel like a lifetime feature for me personally. Solid 7. Let's move on to the next movie, hailing back from 2002 is No Night is Too Long. Now I know I said the last movie kinda lacked that bite, that impact, that drama. Yeah, this doesn't lack that. This one's kinda doing that. It's old, it's 2002, so you know it's back in that era of the gays must die or something like that. Everything has to be a tragedy. So I kinda knew what I was getting into. I kinda hoped that it wasn't gonna be that vicious about it. This movie was so strange in that I was surprised I'd never like heard of it or watched it, because I was all over those movies back in the day. Let's see what the synopsis says. Young Tim Cornish's life has begun with great promise. Blessed with extraordinary good looks, Tim enjoyed much attention and cared little of broken hearts. At university, he was a favored student in a prestigious creative writing course, but a chance meeting, a stolen kiss, and a sudden flare of passion sets Tim on a journey of betrayal, heartbreak, and, get this, murder. In a flashback, he tells his story of cruelty, love, and a soul-destroying guilt that offers little chance for redemption. So right away, this ain't your happy ending. I'm sorry. Like, I'm thinking, which one of these guys is gonna kill the other one? I'm gonna recall this stuff from memory. Tim, he's a student. He's going about his life. I think the movie opens with him getting like some weird threatening letters that are kind of sketchy, like something cannibals on a deserted island. He's kind of like out with his university friends, he looks up into this window and sees a guy, and he's like, that guy, the random guy I saw up there, he's the one. So Tim kind of like pursues him by going into an elevator with him, coincidentally not stalking him at all. They have this weird exchange where I think Tim kind of like gets close. He's in the elevator, he gets close, and then Ivo, the other guy, he's like, this would never happen. I wish this would happen. This would never happen. You know how many times I would have loved it if a guy I was crushing on was like... They become a thing after that first chance meeting. They have like really good movie sex. You know, it's very like not realistic at all. Not even as realistic as Red, White, and Royal Blue was. This guy Ivo, he's a lecturer, by the way. So I mean, Tim's graduated, but it's still kind of like, who knows what the age gap is. You can definitely tell that there is feelings here. Like they kind of start really aloof. Ivo seems really kind of like distanced from the situation, very like stoic-ish. Meanwhile, Tim's like, oh, I'm so head over heels for this guy I locked eyes with that one night, and ever since then I've been completely obsessed. And this guy Ivo, he's a lecturer. He has a life. He has a work-life balance to take care of. He doesn't have time for Tim, who, despite graduating from university, really isn't like acting mature. He's very like high school-ish. Also has a sort of like insanity to him that I don't think is quite addressed. Well, it is kind of addressed. It hints at him having like a past of him being like this, where he just kind of like targets people. He just becomes obsessed with people after seeing them for like 10 seconds. It's kind of unhinged, but sadly, I was kind of unhinged too, because when Tim is a bit like put out from, you know, being ignored for a little bit because Ivo has a job, he gets hit on by some other dudes, whatever. And then he comes home and he's like, hey Ivo, I was hit on by some dudes, which, you know, honesty. Can't fault him for honesty, except Ivo does, and he punches him, so right away we got physical abuse. This didn't need to happen. I'm not saying this as a critique on the movie, like this didn't need to happen. I'm saying this as a critique on humanity. You don't need to express your feelings about this insecure jealousy with physical violence. It's not okay. You ruin a good thing for no reason. And it's sad. You would think that the physical abuse means that Tim is no longer completely obsessed. Ivo has a work trip where he has to be on a cruise for like a few weeks. I think he has to do multiple cruises where he's teaching some like, I don't know, paleontology. He has a job. He's got money. So Tim wants to go with him. Tim can't go with him. Ivo eventually finds a way to get Tim to go with him. And when they actually get over to, I think it's Alaska the cruise is at, Ivo's like, okay, well, I can't be with you for how long we planned. I'll have to go on an extra cruise at some point, and I'll have to leave you here until the next cruise. So Tim's like, oh no, how could you not like notify me of this? Because Ivo knew this before they had like set off for Alaska. So another thing about disrespect with Ivo, he's not giving Tim the heads up. So Tim gets left behind at their hotel, and you know, he's just bopping about the local area. One night, once again, he just sees someone out of the corner of his eye, a nice lady sitting at a table, and he's like, another one, another obsession. So he's just like, forget Ivo, this is the one. And he's with her for like a few days until Ivo gets back, and he's like, I've fallen in love. It's almost ridiculous the way he just flip-flops, and I must say I'm biased in this situation because I don't need another queer movie where, of course, a woman is getting involved in these two queer guys' situation once again. Can we stop like endangering women? Can we stop taking advantage of women? Like, straight men do that all the time. The gays don't have to be constantly making these women suffer. She's always like the person getting cheated on. She's always like the person who's getting her feelings hurt. Sometimes she gets actually hurt. Leave the women alone! The amount of time these old movies just throw women under the bus. Why? Anyway, he's in love. Tim's like, she gave me her address, so, you know, I'll break it off with Ivo, and after the cruise, I'll go to see her in Canada or wherever she lives. Him and Ivo get on the cruise, and Tim's like, I kind of wanna not. I think we should have our space. And Ivo's like, that's weird. That's suspicious. Tim gets more and more standoffish, and Ivo gets more and more impatient because, as we already know, he's a physical abuser, and he's also kind of controlling, considering he was already so upset that other people could even dare look at Tim the wrong way when he's Ivo's property. So now that Tim's like, I'm not feeling it, he loses his patience. He goes along with it for like 2 seconds, but then afterwards he loses his patience and eventually just comes in to Tim's room one day or night, I don't know when it is, and just gives him the good old SA. He pops some grapes, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm like, really? Again, it didn't have to be this way. It's what they call a waste. You know when someone comes out and people are like, what a waste, he's cute. Yeah, no, this is the actual waste, when someone's actually an abuser, despite being good at their career, good looking, perfectly personable in civilization, probably good at sex, I don't know. Tim seemed to be enjoying himself. But the point is, you ruined it. You screwed it up. This can't be... We deserve rights, not whatever this is. It's 2002. The rest of us are out here fighting for our rights, and you're over there like trying to get yourself in prison? What? So yeah, Ivo eats grapes, and Tim's really like, yeah, we're breaking up. This is done. And you know, Ivo's all angry. He kind of tries to break into Tim's cabin one night, but it fails, and it's really terrifying. You're really terrified for Tim, even though Tim's kind of like doing the actual cheating now. Both of these guys are not okay, but Ivo's clearly the more dangerous one, so you're worried for Tim, right? So we go on an expedition to this island from the cruise ship, and this is where things start getting really sketchy. Tim's off on the island walking by himself. And of course, Ivo's there because he's stalking Tim. I'm worried for Tim, of course, but my heart is going out to Ivo because I want him a fully functional and not that obsessed guy. Or, you know, he seemed like the one who was less obsessed and more stable in the relationship before the abuse started. Or did he? I don't know. Maybe he was always kind of like weird. He has a lot of feelings. And in the early 2000s, the 90s, very desperate place for the lads of the queer persuasion. I feel for him, but I'm like, it's kind of like Star Wars. You don't want Anakin to go the path of Darth Vader, but he just does anyway, and you can't forgive him after it. So he tries to start a fight with Tim, and lucky for Tim, they do some clumsy movie magic, and Ivo falls down and hits his head and goes unconscious. Obviously, we're on a isolated island, and Ivo's now there bleeding on the ground from a head injury. So Tim's like, this is my chance, like why would I ain't trying to save this guy who was apparently gonna try to beat me up, maybe murder me, maybe eat more grapes, if you know what I'm saying. The movie was kind of losing me for a minute with all the back and forth and all the really heinous acts, but then Tim really like tries to put on the the heist of a lifetime. He really tries to pull the wool over people. He leaves Ivo where he is. He runs back to the boats that got them there from the cruise, and he does a whole spy mission to get back on the boat and have the boats leave Ivo on the island, presumably for dead because, you know, unconscious. I think a storm was coming, deserted island. I mean, he could have woken up. Well, I guess he just has to live as an islander for like a few days until the next cruise comes. So honestly, it wasn't the best, brightest idea by Tim, but it did actually temporarily get him off of Ivo's grape list. So kudos to Tim for trying to leave a man dead. So he gets back, he pulls the wool over everyone's eyes, he steals Ivo's credit card, and with that he's set. Once he's off the cruise, he can go meet up with his girlfriend. He has Ivo's money, so he has enough to actually get to Canada, except shock and horror, the address of the girl he likes is actually in the jacket that Ivo was wearing on the island. So now he's up the creek without a girlfriend. I mean, the consequences of your actions. He's in Canada by himself. He doesn't know where to go. He has to give up. He has to give up the ghost. And in the most stellar, unexpected plot twist that I thought might have been fairly nonsensical, but kind of made more sense the more I thought about it. We cut to Tim's new girlfriend in her house, technically just living her life. She has a cheating husband or something who like never comes home. He's kind of psychopathic. He's like sending pictures of dead animals to his probably mistress who likes animals or something. You can definitely tell he's a sicko. So Tim's girlfriend and her actual husband are just at the house talking, and guess who shows up to their house? Of course, the one who didn't die, otherwise known as Ivo. And then he talks about how Tim left him for dead, blah blah blah, and how Tim was cheating on him. Tim did actually tell Ivo that he met a nice lady at the pub or whatever, and he was leaving Ivo for her. Having been tipped off about that, Ivo has since put it together that, hey, this is Tim's girlfriend. This is the girl that Tim was cheating on him with. This girl is Ivo's sister. Now, at first it felt like, what the heck is going on? Before they even mentioned it, I kind of figured it out. I paused the movie, of course I did. He asked her to spy on Tim to make sure Tim didn't cheat. No trust, so controlling, and of course he's angry. Ivo's sister, Tim's girlfriend, Isabel, that's her name, right. This poor girl knows how insane her own brother can be, abusive as f***. She runs into her room and tries to lock her door, and he just like jumps on her and he's yelling at her and grr, and for a second there I'm like, oh my god, are we gonna do more grapes? Are we eating grapes again? Like, can we not do that? Thankfully it doesn't do that. He just vents. Once again, I feel the sentiment behind him. He's just f***ing up in the worst ways, and I hate that. So he leaves, but of course her cheating on Ivo with Tim means that she was also cheating on her cheating husband with Tim. So her cheating husband, you know, the sicko, obviously walks into the room, and they'll just leave it to your imagination, which is both the best and the worst thing that could happen, because after seeing that poor girl just get yelled at and jumped on by her already physically abusive, grape-eating brother, you think, even with how much we've seen Ivo do with Tim, even with all that nonsense from Ivo, as soon as you meet Ivo's sister's husband, you know the husband is even worse than Ivo. So the fact that he is now being shown to enter the bedroom with Ivo's sister, who is already scared beyond her wits, that's vile. Ivo himself says later that his brother-in-law is in fact a sick bastard. So Tim is back at home, found comfort in some other guy. Like, it's not worth mentioning. The other guy has fallen on hard times, so it's really just a booty call every now and then. Ivo comes back. He tracks down Tim, and honestly had one of the better resolutions to a movie like this, at least between the main leads as a couple. Now, Ivo was being a bit of a creep, kind of haunting Tim's steps for a minute there. It was kind of like spooky, and I wish the movie would play into that a little bit more. A dead ex who is haunting your every step because you secretly killed him. You're getting these threatening letters and you don't know if he's alive or dead. You assume he's dead, but if he is, then it's a ghost haunting you. Sadly, it doesn't get to be played out for that long, but you know what? I like that Ivo came back to give a resolution, which was the relationship sucked. It didn't work out. They hated each other enough to like try to hurt each other, and in the most, like, I guess, mature way that it could have gone, he just cut it off. He didn't come back to pick things up again. He came back to start free, separate, and be done with it. And that was the best thing for them in the long run. As I said, Ivo from the beginning was seemingly the more stable one. Before the abuse started, he was smart, he was grounded, and he just did what he had to do. And now he's coming back to just be like, okay, we're no good for each other, we need to leave. And Tim somehow is like, hey, you can stay if you want. Tim, you're done, you're broken, it's not happening, you're insane. I'm glad he didn't take Tim up on the offer, because it's better for Tim that Ivo not be in the picture anymore. Up to that point, this is how I could have seen the movie ending. It would have been kind of bittersweet to me, because there is a reality where I'm like, this could have been another royal red, white, and blue thing, but it wasn't meant to be. But if only the movie actually ended like that. So Ivo leaves Tim's place, and he's just staring up at the sky, looking at the rain, and out of nowhere, he just gets stabbed in the back. We can't let them live. Like, in the moment where you have no idea why or how this would happen, you are so pissed off. It's like, why? It's like a bad joke. If you go through the queer movies from, like, I don't know, the 90s all the way to like up to the 2010s, and you didn't see this movie yet, you go through all those years of watching tragic movies. We endured physical abuse. Other people are enduring physical abuse. It doesn't quite end in a death, and you're like, great, perfect, amazing. No, kill him. And that, unforgivable. As it turns out, the guy that Tim was with in the interim, he went to Tim's apartment and saw Ivo standing outside of it and decided to kill Ivo because he thought it was Tim who had a lot of money, and he then probably robbed him or whatever, and that was it. So indirectly, after all that, Tim did indirectly end up being the death of Ivo. So that's great. I mean, if you hated Ivo at this point, then I could definitely see why this is an okay ending ish, maybe, for you. I just stop killing people. And then for the cherry on top, thankfully, Ivo's sister isn't dead, and she comes to visit Tim, and Tim is about to answer the door. From what I have in my head, I'm thinking that he really thinks that, hey, maybe I'm not good for the people I date. Maybe I will get them in trouble. But on the flip side, I also think that maybe in that point he probably realizes the nature of his attractions. They're really instantaneous, really obsessive, and they kind of just turn off over time, and they're not necessarily healthy. So maybe this was the point at which he kind of like turned off of Isabel, Ivo's sister. He wanted this for so long, and yet now it's like it's in front of him and he's like, wait a minute, I'm not obsessed anymore. I mean, personally, that's what it felt like to me, but he also kind of had a very serious, shocked look on his face, to which I felt like that meant that he may have realized something bigger about himself. But anyway, he's been on a massive roundabout journey, so props to him. I'm kind of hesitant to even rate No Night Is Too Long because it was pretty long, and I'm not gonna lie, oof, I don't even know why it's called that, to be honest, but that movie really stuck out to me. It's not a feel-good movie. I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone, but it really stuck in my head. I can't give it less than 6. 5 being mid, 6 is positive. But in my heart, I might have given it a 7 as well. What it lacked in like positive, feel-good emotions, it made up for in the bite and the impact and the drama that I wanted in Red, White, and Royal Blue. So maybe I do give that one a 7. I don't think y'all would or should give it a 7. It might be like a 2 for other people, but I think for me, in my heart, it's probably a 7. Arguably the most chill, but the real heavy hitter of our triple feature. This movie probably f***ed me up. I'm not gonna lie, I watched this one today. I didn't want to cry today. All of Us Strangers. A screenwriter drawn back to his childhood home enters into a fledgling relationship with his downstairs neighbor while discovering a mysterious new way to heal from losing his parents 30 years ago. Okay, well, Adam, our protagonist, lives a very lonely, kind of boring life as a screenwriter person. The apartment building is, for whatever reason, like completely deserted. I think they said it's new, but in some ways I'm like, by the end of the movie, for all I know, this place could be like completely abandoned and Adam is the only one wandering these halls. I don't know, but anyway, let's continue. Adam's just doing his thing in a very vibey hotel apartment room, and one night this other guy, Harry, his downstairs neighbor, comes to him. He's got alcohol. He's like, hey, I saw you looking at me. Mind if I come in and we'll have a good time together? And you know, it's kind of like sketch. It's sketch, right? You don't just want to like randomly entertain a guy at night in your house while he's been drinking. PQ. But I'm a pretty responsible individual. Instead of coming into my apartment, this hour and just drinking. How about we like go out for a coffee tomorrow? How about we like do something in public once? So that's my take on it. But at the same time, in the moment, the movie was so vibe that I kind of wanted to make mistakes. Yes, let's just go. Let's just do it. Such good atmosphere in this movie. It's the cinematography. It's like, we walk out onto a field. We look at the sky. It's beautiful. I think he sees the figure of Harry a couple of times, and he might have seen the figure of his father, or maybe it was himself as a kid. I'm not sure. We do see Harry. We end up meeting him back at the elevator in our apartment building. It's very awkward but so relatable, and I love it for that. I think spliced in between this interaction, we get a bit more insight as to what Adam's doing. He's writing a script which features his own story about his parents from his childhood. To do that, he's also kind of looking at photos of back home. He goes back to his family home, and at first you're thinking, oh, that would be deserted. No one would live there anymore. He meets up with a guy. At first I'm thinking, oh, is this a hookup? Do I know this person? But no, it's his dad, who looks his same age, if not younger. And then mom comes out, who also looks the same age, if not younger. And it's like, what? It's not real. And you kind of get the sense that, okay, this is in his head. I wasn't sure at the time if it was happening at his house, because he's been traveling, Adam has. He's been looking around his old house. So the fact that his father in his head is inviting him into the house, is Adam like coming into the house and like role-playing everything that would happen if he were to return home and his parents were still alive in his head? Is that what is happening right now? Because he is trying to write a script. His parents are very happy to see him. You definitely see the kind of dynamic as it would have been when he was a kid. They're very affectionate parents, they're very loving, but at the same time they have their habits. Like his dad can be a little, he says the things like,
flat puffy shit.
This isn't going to create resentment. Meanwhile, we do have that first interaction with Harry, and I think we have a very intimate night. I think a blowjob happened that night as well, but I love the interaction between these two. The conversations flow very nicely, not perfectly, awkwardly enough, but also like confidently aged up enough to where it's like, okay, I understand how they feel. The perfect slice of life awkwardness and naturalness, focusing on them as a whole package, which really enhances their little interactions and how special that is. Things with Harry are progressing very nicely. I think they decide to make love at one point, which was actually very tastefully done. Once again, listen, the gays are nailing sex scenes. They get it. It's working. Amazing. Harry talks about his past and his current family life, where it's like he's kind of at the edge of his family because it's not perfect. Like, these are semi-middle-aged men at this point. Their parents would have been boomers, Gen X-ish type. It wouldn't have been perfect. So Harry clearly has sadness. And the things they say, the lines they have, they just echoed in me, and I always love it and both hate it when these movies do that. I didn't ask you to like look into my heart and pull out exactly what I've been thinking for years. Don't do that. Leave me alone. Another A+ chef's kiss relationship that is among two guys who are really kind of alone in this apartment, but it really feels like an island, which I kind of appreciate. Usually I think it's kind of creepy and weird to be in an apartment building by yourself alone. In this movie, kind of the vibe. Back to the parents. Adam comes out to his mom. She seems a bit perturbed by the thing. Not the worst coming out scene you'd ever see, but something you'd expect, and it hits home because it's like it's almost a perfect middle ground between the extreme lashing out that you might get in a coming out scene in movies back in the 2000s versus the very nice coming out scenes you might see nowadays in something like, I don't know, your Love Simons or your Heartstoppers, etc. It's that perfect middle ground which would speak so well to my generation. It's sad to say, but I can only hope if I had to do that at this point in my life, it would go as well as it did for Adam in his head. The fact that all of this is in his head kind of makes everything sink a bit lower, because it's like, no matter how positive these interactions might be, this could probably just be like a nice mediation between what he thinks would realistically happen but what he wants to happen. His mom tells his dad, so his dad and him talk about it, and The reconciliation between being that classic dad in the 90s and 2000s and how you'd make your queer son feel at that time, having your son grow up and thinking about that and actually feeling sorry about it, because that's the least people at my age can ask for. Adam was being accommodating about it because, he doesn't hate his parents. It wasn't that awful. It's just that he knows his parents thought a certain way. It's the rock and the hard place, and it's something you have to keep with you, as he says in here. The scene was really brilliant and it got to me, and next scene, Adam's dad lets him put the fairy on the Christmas tree, and Adam's mom sings a very unsubtle song about, sorry I made you feel bad when you came out to me the other day, but I love you. It's sweet. And I think that's the last happy point in the movie, because honestly speaking, it kind of takes a turn from here. So back to Harry. They decide to go out. They end up doing some drugs, which I'm like, it's not a queer movie unless we have a club scene and bonus points if we have drug use. The drug use being what sets Adam over the edge. So apparently Adam has a breakdown in the club, which causes Harry to take him back home so Adam can have his little psychotic break moment. Call it whatever you want. Meanwhile, Adam's having more thoughts about his family. At some point there's a scene where Adam is sleeping at his parents' house, and he's kind of getting flashes of the night that they inevitably perished. I believe it was after Christmas, which is really sad. He gets into his parents' bed and they talk about things that they wanted to do, and it's very sweet and such. But at the same time, he kind of crosses realities where Harry is also in his parents' bed for some reason. He turns around and there Harry is, and then he turns around and mom's gone, and then he turns back around and Harry's not there. That's not foreboding at all. There's a lot of loneliness that just happened there. Back to Adam's breakdown. Harry had to take him back home. Eventually Adam gets the bright idea to take Harry back to his parents' place where he's been visiting them. Or has he been visiting? I don't know. I don't know if Adam's actually been going there or if he's just been having dreams that he's going back to his parents' place. But he goes back to his parents' place and Harry's like, nobody lives here. But Adam's like, knock knock, who's there? Please open the door, I've come back to visit. This scene gave me dementia scares, honestly. I recently had a family member, dementia things, and it's not fun. So a bit of that trauma is happening now, because Adam's like, oh yeah, I live here, and they're here, and they've always lived here. This is my house. How dare you tell me we need to go? But then something crazy happens where Harry sees figures inside the house, the abandoned house that has never been... Something's going on, alright? Something's going on. At that point, I'm shooketh. I don't know what the hell is happening. Harry also sees spirits, and I don't know what's happening. So what was I even thinking at this point? Harry just is not seen again for a while after that. I wouldn't blame him. I'd be spooked out too. I'd be like, what the heck is going on? So they leave that unresolved for a little bit, which is actually kind of brilliant because it lets you forget that Harry saw that and now has to rethink his entire life spiritually. Continuing, Adam goes back to his parents, of course, because he's a good boy. He must visit. It's at that point that they actually start to discuss the nature of their existence currently, which is they can't stay. They don't belong in this realm no more. They're ghosts. Now, at this point, you're thinking, okay, so this is actually a spiritual happening, but it could still also be in Adam's head. It could be both, honestly. Adam could be imagining them. They could be ghosts who Adam sees, or maybe ghosts are infiltrating Adam's mind to make him say, we don't know. It's poignant nonetheless, because he can't wallow in this state of missing his parents forever. These moments, these final moments where he takes them to the mall, they sit at the table, and he doesn't want them to go, but they have to go. It really makes me think about my life and when or if I'll tell my family, and if I'll let it get to the point where they pass and I just never tell them, because that was originally my intention. I don't have faith that they'll understand or not try to change my mind, and I don't have any faith that it won't make life harder than it currently is, so I do not. You know what? Let's not talk about this. The important thing is that they have a sad passing. Again, they leave him again, and once again he is alone. But it's nice that he had that nice kind of closure time Whether it's a dream, whether they're ghosts. Now he gets back to his apartment building, and I think he goes down to Harry's room because we haven't seen Harry since Harry saw Spirit Mom and Spirit Dad, which is creepy. So we enter his room. He has his white noise TV going on because he said he doesn't like how quiet it is in the apartment building. Eerily enough, he didn't answer. We just went in. As soon as he didn't answer, you're like, oh God, what's happened? And as soon as you're like, oh God, what's happened? You're like, do not do this again. I was ready to be so mad. In fact, I was so mad. I was, once again, he must die again? Really? They just can't survive, can they? I didn't know we were back in 2002. So he's walking in and it's all suspenseful, and all the time I'm seething with anger because I'm like, they wouldn't dare do this. And then he gets into the bathroom because of course it's in the bathroom. And of course, there's like what looks to be like a rotting hand, a dead limp hand in the bathtub because of course, and you know, the bottle of alcohol is there. So you're thinking, my first thought was, oh, like after seeing the spirits and realizing that his boyfriend had dementia, he went back to the bottle, and the bottle made him kill himself, thinking about how up his life is with his parents and whatever happened with him and all that stuff. It's sad, but sad in the way that I was very livid because let them live for once. It seemed arbitrary. It didn't seem necessary. I can't believe they've done this. This movie's trash. It's garbage. 0 out of 10. But then Adam walks out and he hears someone come in, and it's Harry. He walks out of the bathroom into the main room of the apartment, of Harry's apartment, and Harry is in the living room of Harry's apartment. After we just saw Harry dead in the bathtub. Dead bathtub Harry is wearing the same thing that living room Harry is. He's in two places at the same time. And I'm over here like, what is going on? Was that a hallucination? Or is this a hallucination? And at that point I'm also thinking like, okay, well, Adam sees dead people, or at least he copes by thinking he sees dead people. So maybe when he saw bathtub Harry, he's like, I'm going to imagine Harry alive now because that's how I cope, which still has me seething and mad, but I guess it's a play on his mental state, so why not just follow into that same flow, I guess. We keep talking to Harry, and Harry seems sad. He seems really out of it. Living Harry, not bathtub Harry. Bathtub Harry's dead. Living room Harry is like, I can't remember his exact words. He was really sad. He was really down and out. He really needed someone that night. And then he continues and asks, am I in there? He's asking if his body is still in the bathroom. And he's like, why didn't anyone find me? And it's during this whole crazy exchange where Spirit Harry in the living room is talking about how bathroom Harry ended up in the bathroom. I'm thinking, okay, there's two things that happened here. Because he asks why his family didn't find him yet. At first I'm like, it hasn't been that long since you did that in the bathroom. But then I think about it myself again, and I'm like, he has the same bottle of alcohol that he had that the first night that he was asking to come in, and Adam refused him. So then I get the thought in my head, that first scene with Harry, that first night where he was rejected, he went down there and went in the bathtub. And this whole time, Adam has been dating a ghost. But Adam didn't know Harry was in the bathtub, which means Adam actually sees ghosts. I went from loving this movie to absolutely hating it. And then it went back all the way up to an 11 out of 10. That's crazy how they just did that. Here I am thinking that it's all completely in Adam's head. And honestly, it could still be. This could all be in Adam's head. For all we know, this entire apartment building is empty and abandoned, and this is just how Adam remembers it being, and all he's doing is he's a ghost playing things over in his head about all his life, and he's dead too. Maybe Adam's dead, maybe Adam's a ghost, I don't know anymore. This blew me away. This was nuts. And it was at that point when the movie started being an 11 out of 10 again, then I was like, okay, so the death wasn't exactly meaningless, nor was it arbitrary. The death in the bathtub was a circumstance that happened even before meeting and having a proper relationship with Harry, and it was actually a result of what happened in the bathtub. So the bathtub isn't something that happened just because, but something that sets up the story, which makes it so much better. Despite me only learning about it now, the fact that it happened before to set everything up is actually kind of brilliant, and I love that. And it was at that point that I'm like, it doesn't matter that you're dead in the bathroom. Apparently, Harry, he's not going away like mom and dad did. Harry has been here for quite a while. Maybe he might stay here. I don't know why mom and dad came back to have some time with their son. And maybe Harry wants to stay in this apartment building. It's nice in here. And Adam can see Harry, whether it's all in Adam's head or Adam can actually see a ghost. Harry's here. And it's nice. It's good. Listen, am I saying that I wouldn't mind having a ghost boyfriend? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Good night.